In some circles, I will always get credit for being the one who broke the locker room barrier for women. And in part, that is true. But in reality, all I've ever done is try to survive in a world that attempts to keep women in their place. The lessons were hard in the learning, on all sides, but yes, it was worth it.
Those words, written by former Houston sportscaster Anita Martini and narrated by her longtime friend and business partner Nelda Pena, were found in a manuscript written in 1987 for a book Anita Martini never lived long enough to publish. For a woman who died prematurely, Anita Martini was ahead of her time.
As a male, honestly, I thought she's trying to be a know-it-all. She's just trying to shove her way in here into our, quote, male territory.
Good old boys network in those days, in every sense of the word, and they had a dining room called the Launching Pad up on the 5th floor at the old Astrodome, and she was not allowed in there.
We were not allowed in the lunchroom where they served the food for all the press. We were not allowed in there.
Nor were they allowed in the locker room until an historic October day in 1974. The Dodgers had just defeated the Astros, and as Anita waited outside the clubhouse for the players to come out, Walter Alston and Tommy Lasorda opened the door and helped Anita Martini break down the biggest barrier of them all.
She was waiting outside and that she was very shocked when they said, "Come on, Anita, you can come in."
The girl had a job to do, and she has just as much authority to get into that clubhouse as any man has.
I think that it was Steve Garvey made a comment to her about, how's it feel to be looking at all these naked men? And she said, I just want to do my job. Put your towel on and let's get to it.
I cautioned my players. I said, I don't want anybody to do anything in here to embarrass us. I want you to treat that girl with respect.
Guys in the shower and coming out of the shower and hollering and screaming and congratulating everybody for the pennant clinching moment. And they saw Anita and they just stood straight up with eyes buckled out, the hair staying on top of their heads, and they looked like they saw a ghost.
The Dodgers did more to help Anita than the Astros did at the time, because the Astros were dead set against her coming into the locker room, but as the Dodgers opened up their locker room to Anita, then the Astros eventually did the same thing.
Back then, the sensibilities among the ball players were probably that a woman didn't belong in the locker room, but if any woman belonged to the locker room, it was Anita Martini.
Born and raised in Galveston, Anita Martini was not a healthy child. She was bedridden with asthma for much of her childhood and spent the majority of her days listening to the radio, specifically the New York Yankees.
When she was little, that's all she wanted to do was to go to Yankee Stadium. I know that was a major, major thing for her.
She's the only person in the city of Houston that I knew that was on a first-name basis with Joe DiMaggio.
Her love for the Yankees, for baseball, and for sports in general eventually grew to become her passion. After a brief modeling career, Anita, along with Nelda Pena, began working for Fun magazine and started covering sports. They eventually bought the magazine and in 1973 made their first trip to the Midsummer Classic in Kansas City.
We requested credentials, and when we got there, we had tickets for the wives' luncheon. And so we said, well, that's not what we requested. Well, that's what we were going to get.
But with the help of the wife of the owner of the Kansas City Royals, Nelda and Anita got their credentials and made Major League Baseball history.
That first All-Star game, I think we got interviewed as much as the All-Stars because we were the first women on the field.
But back home in Houston, Anita still had a long way to go. Though she had earned the respect from the players and coaches, she still wasn't given equal treatment.
I think she was treated with a tremendous amount of respect here in this market. She was viewed somewhat as a novelty by teams that came into this market until they got to know her.
Bill Worrell, then the sports director at KPRC, knew Anita had the talent. He knew she had the ability, and he helped open the door by hiring Anita as a reporter.
I can't believe it. What do you think? Unreal.
Anita was smart, Anita was pretty, and Anita could get along with people. What Anita could do was sniff out a story. She could get them talking. She was just good at what she did.
I've never met anybody who was more dedicated, more professional in this business than Anita Martini. And if all of us followed some of the the pointers that she gave, we'd do a lot better job.
I'm Anita Martini. Tonight, we're going to cover a number of subjects.
By the 1980s, Anita Martini was still doing television, but devoted the majority of her time to her real love, radio. She hosted numerous call-in shows, including Martini and Edmonds, and throughout the Houston sports world was now as respected and admired as any of her peers.
She wouldn't take a back seat to anybody. She knew baseball better than all of us.
I used to refer to her as the Queen, and I would refer to her as the First Lady of Sports, because if there was a First Lady in the White House, then she had to be the First Lady of the press box.
Very few people have ever questioned my knowledge, and very few people have ever questioned my ability. The only thing they've ever questioned was, would the public accept a woman in an authoritative role in sports?
And have they?
In Houston, Texas, they have.
As most significant events in the life of Anita Martini parallel with baseball, opening day 1989 was no different. For the first time in more than 20 years, the Queen of the press box missed the game.
Opening night of the Astros game and the Queen wasn't there. That's like having an inauguration and no president.
Probably the one thing that could have kept Anita away from baseball did just that. She was diagnosed with a brain tumor and needed immediate surgery.
She wasn't feeling sorry for herself. She was feeling optimistic. She just wanted to know, how soon could she get back to work?
She talked the guy into allowing her in the intensive care to have a TV set so that when she woke up, the game would be on.
Typical Anita Martini fashion, she had a brain tumor removed from her head, and she was on the air 2 days later doing her talk show from the hospital.
Anita continued to recover and returned to the airwaves for several more years, then ultimately lost the battle in July of 1993.
She fought a valiant battle with brain cancer.
Martini has died at the age of 54.
Anita Martini, the First Lady of Houston sportscasting, she will be missed.
When Anita was buried, it was a day without a cloud in the sky, but it was the day of the All-Star baseball game.
In July, on the day of the All-Star Game, 1993, exactly 20 years since our first All-Star Game.
The processional went around, came up, went 610, and went all the way around the dome, and all the cars got to go around. And it was so long that I remember that they had to take open a gate and go through a different exit because it couldn't loop around.
That was a crowning glory of her life, to be in a funeral procession to circle the Astrodome and says, hey, you made the dome, you were part of it, and we're going to take you around so you can see it for the last time.
For me or any woman to walk through a major league clubhouse now is just simply part of our job. Anita Martini paved the way with her intelligence, hard work, dedication, and her love for the game. Though she never set out to be a pioneer, she was, and for that, her legacy will forever live on.
She was a Jackie Robinson of women's sports. She paved the way for you and everybody else to do what they were meant to be.
I guarantee you when she's in the great press box in the sky and flips on the TV, she smiles when she goes up and down the channel and with a remote control and sees all the women that are out there right now, many of whom have no idea who she is.
I want people to understand the Anita and all that she did before it's too late.
I think they all should know about her. I think all men and women in sports should know about her.
The fact that we're still talking about Anita Martini 12 years after her death shows you a little bit of the impact that she has had on this profession, especially in the city of Houston.
I want to be the best, not the first, but the best.